like I was one of those guys who, if I read, I'd visualize.
Yeah.
So that process allowed me to then maybe create my own sort of way. I don't know, but if
Yeah.
I visualize it in my own way, then it makes sense. Whereas if I just saw someone do it and I try and copy it,
Yeah.
then you're now going on how it looks first before you go on how it feels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I always wanted to read, visualize, practice, compare.
Yeah. No, I like it. And journaling's like one of those things that I know it was one of those things that I thought I'd had so many conversations over WhatsApp with guys. And I started thinking, I'm losing all this stuff in like the annals of WhatsApp, so to speak. And I put together a fancy little Google sheet. Like that was where I enjoyed being creative, doing a lot of stuff online.
Yeah.
But it was like guided journaling because most people don't know what notes to make. So if you ask them the right questions, at least they can put together, well, close to the right answers. But I love that as well. Every time you bowl, write down some notes.
And you make it more personal.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like what we were talking about the other day, like every coach has got a way of explaining things.
Yeah.
And it might have worked for the majority of the clientele that they've worked with, but it might not work for that particular individual. But if you give them 2 or 3 different analogies or, like associations, and then you say, well, what do you think? Or what do you feel? Then they start to come up with their own associations. You say, listen, that's your way, for coaching this. If you feel like, I don't know, like for me, when I was thinking about bracing my leg, I felt like pulling the leg behind or towards me, like the knee, like feel like I'm pulling the knee back or something like that, or pushing from, underneath my feet. Gave me that feeling. So I was like, that's how it feels, but to me, that makes sense, or that gives me that association. But to someone else, they need to hear different things or different options they can try out before it starts to make sense. But when it does click, then you say, listen, that's you. Don't go around and use the different terminology that you are not going to understand. You know what I mean? Like the classic case of one person I'm going to introduce you to.
But I like to define it in your own words.
Yeah, you have to.
I know when I was younger and I was coaching, I was the one always talking. And then you start to realize, like, I'm probably talking just to feel like I'm justifying my coaching. And then it sort of clicks and you go like, I really need you to put it into your own words. Because like I have my way, like you said. But what I put into the journals was like, I want you to define really well for me in your own words what your best experience is and what your worst experience is.
Yeah.
Then there was an approach that I'd say, well, when you're bowling in your worst experience, you can better understand it.
Yeah.
And then you know what's missing from your best.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. And I wasn't much of a strike bowler. I was more of a role player, come in after the openers, just, try and just go through those middle overs. So, because I wasn't taking wickets, you don't find me a lot in a lot of the highlights, So, and I wasn't bowling like 10 most of the time. It was 6 to 8 middle overs. So, I didn't really like my bowling towards the end. So, I think I never really, to me, it was a bit of a painful existence, like turning out. And, you roll your arm over and then you can't turn in bed. You're like, I got a ball again. And my coach at the time, Heath Street, you're always like, actually every coach, Lance Klusner, Heath Street, they'll all be like, Solly, come on, man, you got a ball. You got to give us a few overs, And like, 2015 World Cup, I remember I was pretty fit in terms of, like general fitness, but I hadn't actually practiced bowling. So the first bit of bowling I did was in a warm-up game in New Zealand. And I was like, it's coming off. It's coming pretty good. And I ended up, I think I was bowling mid-130s.
Yeah.
And I was like, geez, if I can do this without training, this is, it could be something. But then, the body tells you. You have to put in the work. So you got to pay for it. And then you just get to the hotel and you're like, I'm going to turn up tomorrow. And then, you realize you can't cheat the system. You gotta practice.
And that reminds me of what you were saying about Plunkett. Bowling 10 before the game.
Yeah, he was bowling a lot. Yeah, he was bowling a lot, and I think obviously each bowler realizes how much they need to feel good going into a game. So I mean, he was one of the guys that I picked out because obviously he's played a lot of international
Yeah.
cricket, so it's always
Half decent cricketer.
good to see what they do. To get ready, even though I mean they're semi-retired or retired, it was good to
Yeah.
sort of see that, and everyone sort of pointed it out that geez, he bowls a few overs before like he really gets himself in, and I was just worried. I was just like, oh geez, I hope he doesn't get injured because at the end of the day, you're not sure, whether he's been doing a lot of work or he hasn't been doing a lot of work, but clearly someone who's played that much cricket would know exactly what they need to do. And I remember, Mitch would have days where he wouldn't bowl because obviously now it's a lot of pain, and he did talk about it. And the
Yeah.
common thing I think around all the bowling guys that I spoke to was pain.
Right.
So everyone was in some sort of pain. And I was like, you know what? I thought I was an anomaly, but maybe my pain threshold wasn't as high as all the other guys, because everyone was like, oh mate, body. So I was like,
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one who used to feel like that, but clearly it's a common thing. And I was telling this young fast bowler, Melbourne, and I was like, if you want to bowl for a long time, you've got to be able to tolerate pain.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what about recovery? Doesn't that take all the pain away? I said, nah, it just makes it easier for you to turn up tomorrow, but you got to start to understand what you need to do to loosen up so you can actually get back and bowl some more.
Yeah.
Because I haven't played 4-day cricket. I remember there was a time when I bowled 28 in the first innings. And I remember there was like a feeling that I'll get into this zone where I'm just like, just run in, just get to the crease and release the ball. Like, you know what I mean? That was my thinking. Like, just get to the crease, just one more. And then by the end of it, you get into a bit of a rhythm and you forget about, you don't even count the numbers. Like, when I looked at the end, I was like, oh, geez, 28. What am I going to do in the second innings? So, yeah, that was insane. And I was only a youngster at that time. So, yeah, you sort of realize that you can trick your mind a little bit and your body will react to what you tell it. So if you say, man, I'm really tired, well, you'll start to feel a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. That's pain's one of those interesting ones. You can't be delicate.
No.
But you also have to be conscious that you don't want to overtrain yourself into something serious. It's like listening to your body, not being a delicate flower.
Yeah. Yeah.
But knowing that you're not going to have days where you're feeling like 100%. It's just the nature of fast bowling. So much force goes through. If you look at me carrying a rib injury from preparing myself to bowl, and I've carried plenty, but there's just no way that with that much force going through your body, you're just going to be as fresh as a daisy forever.
Yeah.
Some sort of discomfort. I probably use the word discomfort more than pain.
Yeah.
People confuse it, and then you get people. I had a guy who pushed himself into an injury.
Yeah.
So it's going like, well, you weren't training all that, intelligently to begin with, and you clearly weren't listening to your body.
Yes.
Like you said, recovery gets you back up for the next session.
Yeah. And I think you're spot on in the definition. Like, discomfort is probably one way of explaining it, because at the end of the day, if I was doing a session with someone and then they straight away they're like, oh, like they hold their back, straight away I have to ask him, okay, what is it? Like, how does it feel? You know what I mean? Like, is it just a niggle? Like, because a lot of the guys are like, oh, let me just stretch it out. Let me just go one more. And speaking from experience, that's when I always made it worse. And I'd be like, why didn't they just stop?
Yeah.
So there is a certain level of pain, especially anything that's a little bit achy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's something like a little throbbing sort of pain, generally I'll just stop. Like, what we're talking about is more like I don't know, I'll explain it, but you just like move.
That feeling when you wake up out of bed in the morning and it's
someone's been bashing you with a baseball bat, and everything is just like you haven't been in the gym after a few months. Like that initial
feeling.
pain. You're like, nothing's really, really wrong. It's just that I've probably just put the body through a fair bit. And so this is Netherlands.
Yes. I like it.
Opening, I reckon. I opened a few times. really a bit of work to be done on the technical
Short
stuff.
runner.
Yeah, I shortened it at the end
Okay.
to sort of accommodate batting.
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, maybe so it's every ball. So I went from a very long run up to a very short run up.
Yeah.
When I realized I could just rely. What surprised me about this one was they actually had the speeds on there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I felt like I was at my worst here, like because I wasn't. This is when I was completely a batsman
Yeah. Okay.
and being forced to bowl, pretty much forced.
Hey, this is quality. Good for that's 136. Yeah, not bad. Not bad for a batsman only.
Yeah, well, technically I was an all rounder who
Yeah.
didn't really like bowling at the end. Like it's funny, the amount of work I put into my bowling
Yeah.
was a lot.
Right.
And then I woke up one day and I was like, this is too much.
Yeah, gotcha.
My body is just really struggling to recover, and I'm not going to make it as a bowling all rounder.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I had phases because when I started, I was a batsman
Yeah.
who could bowl a bit, and then because I realized it would make selection so much easier, I became an all rounder. And I try to do both equally. So I've opened both batting and bowling in international cricket, which is something that I probably took it for granted at the time. And they asked me to open the bowling in a test match against the West Indies, and I was like, me? They're like, yep. And at that time, I reckon I was probably 115, 120.
Who'd you bowl against?
West Indies.
Bit like who was opening, do you remember?
I nicked off one of the Hope brothers. I don't know which one.
I only know Shy.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was him or his brother, but I was pleasantly surprised because I had an ankle problem, so it had blown up, and I was wearing 2 pairs of socks, had all the painkillers.
Fuck.
And I was just like, God, can I actually go through this? And they're like, oh, you should try it. Had the cortisone injection, and guess what? It just went like this. By the end, man, I was struggling to get to the crease, and I'll just get there, and I'm like, because now the effort went out of it.
Yep.
And that's pretty much the majority of my bowling. I only got this fixed in 2018, and then I finished up in 2019. So I didn't end up bowling well, but they didn't know. So I had what they call, I think it's called the Ostrigurnum.
Okay, no idea.
It's like the growth, your bone sort of grows or whatever, and then it creates an impingement of some sort. Now, every single scan I went to before that, they never picked it up because apparently it's in every person. It's a normal bone in every person or something. I don't know, whatever it is. And then for some people, it just grows a little bit, and then it just causes that impingement. So if someone's not specifically looking at it, they just think it looks normal. So from a young age, because I used to bowl side on, that's probably my fastest.
Interesting.
Under 19, I was bowling.
That didn't look side on.
Yeah. So started off side on. Then when this just blew up, the doctor at the time was like, "Oh, show me your action." So I was like, "Yeah, I jump in, I land like this," and they're like, "Okay, we got to change. That's putting too much pressure on your ankle." So I was like, "Okay." Went to front on, and it did not change. It actually bowled slower, and I was just like, "It's too painful." And then I eventually settled on that sort of semi-open action. And this is the tinkering that I did, with the actions. So I thought I was changing for the sake of the ankle, to be honest, to help me bowl, but then it just never healed. So they didn't know what to look for. And then I eventually met a guy who used to work with the Richmond Football Club. And he was like, "Oh, we see this a lot in the football players. So we have to go in and shave it because they're kicking the ball a lot."
Yeah, gotcha.
So that was 2018, man, and I was 1 year away from finishing up, and I'd already stopped bowling fast at the time because I was just like, it's too much pain. So every game, that's why I was referring to pain in the beginning, because that was painful.
Yeah.
I felt like every first ball, it was like pins and needles.
Fuck it out.
And then it slowly gets better and better as you bowl. and then you get to a point where you can tolerate the pain, and then afterwards it was just like straight into the into the ice. You're just like, oh god, So yeah, there were phases when the cortisone injection worked a little bit,
Yeah.
and then it just stopped working.
Yeah.
Bangladesh, mate, I had 2 back to back. You're not even supposed to do that. And then
Is that going to get someone in trouble?
cut it out. Yeah. But they're like, oh, we need you to bowl, right? So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, we'll sort it out. Injection,
Mm-hmm.
2 days with the leg up, whatever.
Yep.
Which I didn't do. And then went back. I was pretty confident. I was like, yeah, it's going to work. Straight into the net. Tried it. And I was like, oh, again, sent me back. Another one.
Far out.
By the end, we gave up. We're like, it's not going to work. So at the end of the day, I feel like why I used to have the real long run up was it was just perfect.
Yeah.
At that time, those were the times when I wasn't feeling as much pain. And then the more I got, I was like, let's just shorten this.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really bring that leg hard. And I ended up becoming a bit of a medium bowler, which I hated because I always wanted to use the bouncer.
Yeah, gotcha.
So you'll see there's a couple of bouncers.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one bouncer. Yeah, that was definitely good.
I think there's another one.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's there. No, otherwise I'll have to send it to you. In Sri Lanka. Yeah, I love the bouncer.
Yeah.
And all the coaches I work with always used to say, you got to utilize your 2. And I love that because, for me, it was all about unsettling the batter, making sure that they're not just lunging forward,
Which I wonder if, like, at an amateur level, I feel like they don't like you using a bouncer. I've had a couple of my bowlers say that, like, just pitch it up, just bowl top of off, etc., which I don't believe is great advice. But it's almost like you're not just, it's up to you. You're almost discouraged to do it. But my issue with that, from a length perspective, is if all you do is work in this channel because you're only trying to bowl top of off, it makes it really difficult when you start missing because you haven't learned to work in this much length. So your bandwidth is so much more narrow. So when things go wrong, it's much harder to try to like problem solve for.
Yeah, from a batsman's perspective, I would love a guy who just bowls it in the same area.
Well,
because
we had that chat about the other weekend.
Yeah, because then I'm actually saying to myself, well, you know what? I know exactly what he's doing. I can run at him. I can walk at him. I can I can move across the pitch, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then more importantly, I can pick out every single clue in his action so that if it does change, I'm already aware, if that makes sense. So if someone is just bowling here, and I walk at him or I run at him, and then I'm in my setup and I see that he's running a little bit faster. Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, okay, he might be trying to bowl quicker, maybe a bouncer, maybe a Yorker, so I'm aware. Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't know whether that's happens at the lower level or not, but I would probably say any batter who actually, puts a little bit of work into their game is going to probably pick up on those clues.
Yeah, which is probably a good note for some bowlers to make because, I think a few people have said now, like, a lot of bowlers focus too much on their end and not enough on the other one. Yeah. And we had that chat last week about, like, how do you unsettle a batsman when a batsman wants to unsettle you? Yeah. And it's pretty obvious that your first ball of the game is probably going to try and be top of off. Yeah. So a guy who likes to whack bombs might go, well, if it's in that slot, see you later.
It ends up being a bit of a battle of the minds, isn't it? Like, because I'm saying to you, we've both got nerves at the beginning, especially as an opener. Yeah. And I'm backing myself to say, okay, I'm going to run at you. Yeah. Let's see if you're going to change anything or you're going to be staying on top of off. Now, I'm prepared to lose my wicket. Yeah. But at the same time, I practice that as well.
That's fascinating, where you're prepared to lose your wicket. The risk there is so much higher. Yeah. But I've had chats with bowlers already who are like, I just don't, I'm not confident in my in-swing. I'm not confident in my bouncer to go straight away. It's like, worst case scenario, you might go for 6. Yeah. You might bowl a wide. Yeah. Your worst case scenario is significantly better when you get to come back again for another ball that a batsman has gone like, I'm going to lose my wicket. That's a great little clip to...
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon for the bowlers...
Mark this one. Where's Mark? There.
For the bowlers, it is... You've got so much opportunity to get the batter out. Like, if it doesn't work out, you can always walk back to your mark and come back again at him. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm hitting you there, I'm not going to go 6 out of 6. I can try, but
Yeah.
at some point I'm going to miss hit one.
Mhm.
You know, so at the end of the day, you got to back your skill.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm doing. I'm backing my skill, and I reckon as a bowler, you should back your skill. And if you feel like you're losing a little bit of confidence, then maybe you haven't trained well enough.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you should be able to say, okay, I mean, there is a contingency plan if he runs at me.
Yeah.
What do I do? But if it's a new ball, it's swinging, well, let it swing, because then running down, it might hit the outside edge, get caught at third man. You know, so ultimately, I think most bowlers tend to think too far ahead. They think about what the batter is trying to do, and they're actually not really good enough to know what the batter is trying to do. If you're an all-rounder, I understand, but you know, sometimes you end up being too smart, you outsmart yourself in the process.
That's a great little piece of advice. It's so true.
You know?
Like, I remember someone said to me, and it was like, as soon as people start moving away from, you know, what's simple, what's basic, like things start to go wrong. And there's definitely enough people that can overthink things to the point where they do outsmart themselves. And I was having a chat with another guy about run-up angles.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm just not sure which one I could use, you know, or like which one's right for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're all right and they're all wrong.
Yeah.
When you think there's only one way to do it, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because then you've got 4 or 5 different options.
Yeah.
There has to be one that's ideal. But
Yeah.
like all 4, if you can run in 6 different ways
Yeah.
and bowl the same top of off ball, that's dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it comes down to what you're trying to achieve. You know, so I think a lot of guys, and this is probably a piece of advice that I would probably give any young bowler, there's a time where you need to decide the style of bowling that you're probably capable of.
Yeah.
Are you going to be a swing bowler, or are you going to be a fast bowler?
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys end up spending too much time trying to be a fast bowler when really they could be developing, different parts of the game. Like, listen, man, you're not going to bowl 145, so you're going to be a medium fast bowler. So how about you develop those skills as well? You know, a lot of guys spend so much time trying to bowl quick when their body's already telling them, this is the threshold, this is what we can work within. Right? So now let's just develop a couple of the skills. Whereas I think if you spend too much time and then you get to, let's just say you get to 28 and you realize, okay, my fastest ball is going to be 126. Well, and you're bowling gun barrel straight.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, you're not going anywhere. Now you look at the guys that have come in and they've utilized, swing seam, Trent Copland, Praveen Kumar.
Yeah.
I mean, who else bowls sort of slow, but they've got a bit of skill? I want
to say Jimmy these days, but he had speed back in the past. He's just 40 years old and still doing.
I mean, skill is underrated, right? Swing is really, really key. Like, you can bowl 110, but if you're hooping it, like, look at that Kyle Maz. He hoops it. Yeah, he hoops it. Yeah, like, you've got to be able to do something with the ball. Like Shane Watson at the end, like, how much was he swinging it? So there's no point chasing speed only.
Yeah.
When you can develop other skills as well. Can you swing it? Like, what happens if you're running into a breeze and you can't do anything on that particular day? Like,
for me, it was like it's an axiom conversation. Like, what do you put at the top of your, I guess, philosophy that everything else gets dictated from? People put speed there.
Yeah.
And then when you look at everything else, like mindset, tactics, skills, etc.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I need to focus on outswing. It's going to be fast outswinger, so it's not an outswinger.
Yeah.
But if you put like, what my thought was, I'm going to put better fast bowler there, and then it filters into. Now I can have some better conversations and go like, I'm happy for guys during the week. I like giving a speed session, just to show guys. Some guys don't even know what the third gear is.
Yeah.
But like, that's one session.
Yeah.
And then you've got things you can do at training where it's like we're developing some skill. Then you want to link it into some sort of scenario, and then start to understand batsmen's, weaknesses.
Yeah.
So you've got something to go to.
Yeah.
If all you do is try and bowl quick, and probably as well, the other thing is that if all you're doing is trying to bowl quick, you're probably focusing on your end of the wicket.
Yeah. Yeah. and it becomes a conversation that we've kind of touched on a little bit. Tactics versus strategy.
Yeah.
In season plan versus off season plan. And I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with trying to bowl gas.
Yeah.
I think I was one of those kids. I grew up idolizing, your Brett Lees, and I just wanted to run in and bowl as quickly as I could. And I did because I practiced it. Now, I think you've got to be quick enough, and this is where the coaching becomes really important because you could easily pump your own tires up. But if you can quickly realize that I am not very quick, then I think you can get advice from different people, but someone needs to, start early and say, listen, man, maybe you could add a little bit more to just running in and bowling quick, because I personally think right now, I mean, obviously it depends on whether you're maximizing what your action can give you. Technique wise, are you really, where you need to be? Because someone was asking me last week, is like, how much speed can I add, with the right coaching? And I was like, I don't know if you can go about 5 kilometers.
And it's such a poor question to ask. Like, I can't tell the future.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know, but I just feel like if you're going 10, 15 kilometers quicker, then, geez, your technique was really bad. So I don't know, but I feel like you can make marginal changes, but not really massive. So if you're a 130 kind of bowler, I don't know if you can. I mean, unless your technique is really bad, I don't know. You can tell me from a biomechanics perspective whether you can really improve that you get, 15, 20 Ks. I just think it's unrealistic based on what I've seen.
Well, and the thing there is, like, I don't know many people who are committed enough to train long enough, because that's a multi-year type thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way you're gaining it in, I don't know, one off-season type thing. You can get a bit, but...
And does it also get affected by, I guess, your age?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, once you reach a certain age, because there is a certain level of athleticism.
Genetically, you're going to start to...
You know what I mean? Like, and this is true. I had a guy, and we'll just say he was on the other side, right? So, and he's like, I want to bowl quick.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, man, I'm going to be really straightforward here. What I think is required to bowl quick, I don't think genetically you have it. You really move slowly.
Yeah.
And you're on the other side, like you're past 40. Let's just say, like, probably 50.
Yeah.
But let's just say you're past 40. I think you're actually putting yourself at risk by trying to do some of the stuff, because now, like, you don't run quick for starters. You don't have any, like, you don't have quick arm speed. Like, at the end of the day, all the things that are, like, what's fast for you?
Yeah, true.
So I was like, I'm sorry, man. I personally think you can maximize what you can get out of the body without injuring yourself. But at what expense? Because let's just say he was on the other, like, closer to 50. His passion was he wanted to bowl fast and bowl a bouncer and all this stuff. And I was like, well, to be realistic, unless you're playing on Syntho, like, it's going to be pretty hard to get that ball to bounce up.
Yeah, that's
because it was floating. It was literally floating.
Oh,
and I'm like, and the run up was, a little bit labored. And I was thinking to myself, it's hard for a lot of people to take the truth, and say, well, I've kind of gone past it. But I can still I can become efficient.
Yep.
And I'm sure you would probably look at someone and be like, okay, that's an efficient action.
The running thing is a good point. Like, if they're running in slow, or their running mechanics aren't great going in, it's like you're fighting a losing battle. And I couldn't even start the battle until you sort of fix that first, So now it's going like, well, it's going to take us some time to do this. Now, at that age, is there a physical limitation that's holding you back? Is there a strength limitation that's holding you back? Do you no longer have the power, the expression of power to be able to actually run it at a decent pace? And then you go, well, now you've got this extra momentum.
Yeah.
Is this going to, like, are you going to be able to absorb this? Are you going to be able to hold this through? It's like, it starts getting to, like, you get deep in the conversation and go, I don't know, man, this is just step one, but these next steps, I don't know.
Yeah, and I spoke to him from a perspective of someone who had tried to bowl quick.
Yeah.
And I had gone through all kinds of stuff. And for me, it was a journey of discovery. I always call it trial and refinement rather than trial and error, because I think
I like that.
I was learning through all the faults. So
Yeah.
reading Ian Pond's, the fast bowling Bible, visualizing what that felt like, trying out all this, seeing all these YouTube videos. So I was trying everything, right? And I did everything. I had the contrast training. I did all the heavy bowls. Man, I did it all. Did hill sprints for fun. And I was picking from the things that I felt gave me, made me feel like I was running in fast, especially hill sprints. I felt like after hill sprints, if I gave myself like 2 or 3 days rest, that weekend I would run in and just feel like I was just like, just a simple game.
Now that you're running on flats.
Yeah, I'm just like, I felt like I was getting down. So I was trying to give advice from that perspective. Well, listen, I've been through that. I want to bowl gas and challenge the body. And I'm looking at you, and I was a sprinter. I was lucky. I was a sprinter. I could run sort of pretty quick for my age. So I was like, with this running technique, and I think I've mentioned to you, a lot of people that I wish, could just go and see a running coach or running mechanics coach, because there's just not enough of that done.
I agree.
You really need to run well, I think, to be able to maximize what you can get out of your bowling action, isn't it? So so going to what we were speaking about earlier, there are certain limitations or parameters within which you can work to gain those kinds of speeds.
Definitely.
But I definitely say to a lot of the youngsters, it's always, you've got to have the strategy versus tactics sort of question lingering, and asking the right people, because I'm sure someone during the season, it's just heavily focused on speed. You'll be like, dude, come on. You know what I mean? Like, are you taking wickets?
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to get selected if you're not taking wickets? Like,
it's amazing how little bowlers understand, and this is more for obviously an amateur level, but how little they understand about tactics or how to read a batsman, which I thought, that's kind of a cool thing to play around with too, because there's so much to that you're probably not even aware of.
Yeah, and I don't know whether, once again, it's through trial and refinement or being given those leadership roles at a young age. And for me, I think also one other thing was I trained with a few different guys, and being a guy who was always looking for that extra improvement, I was always learning from others as well. So I look at my mates, see what they're doing, see, look at 3 different people, see if there's any patterns there. And through that, I started to understand technique better.
Yeah.
So I was teaching someone the other day, a left-hander, and they're like, do you bat left-handed? I said, nah. He's like, geez, you actually get into positions pretty well. I was like, well, one of my 2 people that I trained the most with in my life are both left-handers.
Yeah.
So I'm able to understand those movements in the same way as a right-hander. But there are positions that when I watch a batsman, I can tell where they're going to, if they do nick, where they're going to nick.
Yeah.
So as a bowler, I think it's important to understand all these things, because I always run up to the bowler and I tell them straight away. So where's the bat? I could.
That's it.
Yeah. So I always like to demonstrate. Yeah. So one of the things that I always check is where the batsman taps. Right. Simple thing like that.
Interesting.
So if someone taps the bat like this.
Yeah.
All right. So the chances are they're going to raise their bat here.
Yeah.
Now, if you're coming into the ball like this, the chances are you're going to be more leg side dominant. You're going to be looking to play more to the leg side, which means your edges are just going to be squarer. So they're going to go third man, gully sort of area. So if I'm fielding, I'm going to run to the bowler and be like, listen, if you can swing it away, all right, he's going against it.
Yeah.
All right, so you're going to get that. Now, if someone's got if they're coming straight from behind like this, then I'm generally, where they're going to nick, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because they're almost going to play inside the line of the bat, off the ball, sorry. They're going to play inside the line. So those are the simple things I look at. And I'm like, oh, okay. Straight away, find a nick thicker
I like that.
wider.
And you can shuffle your slips or maybe put in the gully, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you could throw the ball a bit wider, you know. So once again, if someone's got an open face, all right, they obviously play well through here,
Yeah.
but they're still at risk of, for the ball that's a little bit wider,
Yeah.
they're not going to really time it because the bat's going to move in their hands, because the chances of them using the full face for the ball that's really wide, if they don't actually come rounder, they're going to get the ball to hit sort of the top part of the
Yeah.
bat. So they're not going to time it all the time. But if they got great hands, well, they will. But I'll probably say the majority of them, you can test them out. So a good example is Virat Kohli.
Yeah.
How many times does he get out to the wider one?
Yeah.
All right, because he loves this one, right? He loves reaching for it. But what are you presenting there? This part of the bat.
Yeah.
So it's a strength, but a weakness at the same time. So early on, I mean, the Australians tried it last time.
Yeah.
Early on, what did they do? Full him wide. And they did take him. The English or the Australians,
English.
I can't remember. They did get him there. And someone like Steve Smith, where is he nicking off? If you look at his technique, he's there.
Well, he's changed it now, hasn't he?
A little bit. Actually, I didn't watch much yesterday, but I heard someone saying he's made a few changes, which is good.
Yeah.
But I think he's always going to be. That's always going to be the area nicking off there, just because of this angle.
Yeah.
So for him, you get him early or you don't, you know. And I'd probably say that's one of the areas that when they're trying to get Steve Smith out, they go that fourth stump.
Yeah.
Ball going away, and because of the angle of the bat, I mean, he's a great player. He ultimately will cash in if you miss the length, but ideally you want to get him early. Otherwise, once he's in, you are playing catch up. Yeah. So all those things, I think, they're the little clues that I mean, batters have heaps. The bowlers probably not so much because they focus more on their technique.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to read the batter as well.
Well, there's some info right there, which I think is Stubbzy's backyard. That was cool. I mean, I like this idea of trying to make it a bit more visual and put something you can see to the chat.
Yeah.
And I do feel like tactics and understanding scenarios a bit better is probably an area that there isn't much out there for you to go, like, where can I go to get a bit more about this? Like, one of my guys asked me, is there a book or is there something I can, buy to read about this? And I sat back and thought, honestly, mate, I don't know. Follow some batting coaches and watch how they break down batting technique.
Yeah, and to be honest, there's not a lot of that. And there's also a lot of people that protect their information because they don't want to share it. They want you to come to them directly.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I wanted to do with the Advanced to Play sort of platform that I'm still working on.
I feel like I've had a similar membership that I've been working on for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, being a creative, you end up being caught up in anything that comes out.
Anything,
So that's why every idea you get, you just want to go for it first, and then let it run. Let it run its course, and then hopefully, it takes up. But I was juggling a whole heap, man, with uni and stuff. But I think ultimately, I mean, I'm trying to write a few articles to throw on there.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll be videos. And the thing is, I want to get as many people to contribute. So even if you want to write something, throw it on there. Because you write I think, once again, what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
When you read, you visualize. And then through that, I think you start to create some sort of an idea of what it should look like. And then you go and practice. Because the best discoveries come from trial. Like guys like Mendes, the carom ball and all this stuff. They were trying different things, So if you don't visualize this by yourself and you just try and copy other people, then you kind of don't have your own identity.
That's so true.
So if you try stuff, you never know what you might discover whilst trying to be someone else. I mean, Steve Smith talked about he wanted to mold his batting on a combination of A.B. de Villiers and all. Can you pick out a bit of A.B. from what Steve Smith does? Probably not. I can't see much. But when he talked about what inspired him to try out something in the nets, I mean, he mentioned A.B.'s name there, and he's like, oh, yeah, I wanted to try and look at that. So ultimately, in his mind, he had an idea of what it would look like, but it doesn't look like that to the to our eyes.
Yeah.
But he was trialing stuff, and I think guys need to read more because I reckon it's a different way of learning as well. Like obviously the visual stuff is good, but I think if you first have a read, you kind of start to you're trying to make sense of it, and I like that part of learning
Yeah.
because I think you start to create certain ideas in your mind about what it might look like, and then you try it out, and then you start to associate with a bit of feeling.
That's important, the trying out part. Like,
Yeah.
it's so funny when I get people who like text me, like I might give them something to do, and then they try to think through how they're going to do it. It's like, stop thinking about it, just go and do it.
Just do it.
And then figure it out. Like problem solve it from there.
Yeah. And then it becomes a feel conversation.
Yeah.
You'd be like, that felt good.
It's like you're trying to think through the feel. I need you to feel the feel.
Actions speak louder than words.
I can't describe this feeling for you, man. Like, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to go out there and do it.
Yeah, it has to end up being a feeling conversation. You'd be like, oh, that felt like this. I felt like I was pointing up to the ceiling, or I was pulling a rope. Yeah. Well, that's how someone felt.
Yeah.
Now you can't then make that the syllabus and say pulling the rope. No. It worked for him. It might not work for me. So ultimately, players have to become their own coaches.
Yeah.
That's the best way to learn. If you start coaching yourself, I'm telling you, you'll learn quicker than anyone else, because then you start to understand yourself better. You're like, okay, when I did that worked, so let's keep that. That one didn't work. Bang. Trial, refine. Trial, refine. And keep moving.
Yeah, definitely.
So, where was I going with the batting knowledge for the bowlers? There's not a lot of information, unfortunately, and hopefully we can
between us we can
start to put something together.
Eventually put something out there
to help out, because one of the things that I find really, I took it for granted, but when you play international cricket, you get put in a lot of pressure moments, and I remember when a couple of the young bowlers would come in, make their debut, and they get to bowl at the death, and you can definitely tell the pressure is on. Right, you got, I don't know, whoever is at that end teeing off. Those are the moments where you can really figure out if someone is under pressure, like they're really going to water, or they're liking the challenge, and that comes from understanding what options you have at hand, and that then comes back to how you train, and then it comes back to your identity and your style and the way you obviously do your training. So those moments, I think a lot of bowlers don't even know who to talk to. Like at the death, you're like, okay, this batsman here, how do I actually know where he's targeting? So I've got to have 5 guys out. Where am I going to have them? Where am I looking the ball? What kind of wicket is it? What are the dimensions? Where's the breeze? These are the things that when you're under pressure, I realize pretty quickly. You can forget all those things. You could have the longest boundary there, the shortest boundary there, and you come and land it in the half volley zone. And the guy's, taking it down. So ultimately, if you don't practice these things, if you don't replay these scenarios in your mind, they won't come when you need them. You don't get that recall. And those are the chats that I think as fast bowlers, you probably don't get enough of.
I wouldn't think so, especially not at, say, an amateur level. But I do like the idea that, these are the sorts of things that you should be talking about, whether it's before Tuesday training or before Thursday training, or I don't know what your thoughts are on talk after the game. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of sitting there trying to dig into it too much. I think you should journal something, but then you're almost better off coming back fresh and being like, what did we learn? Because it's done. It's in the past. There's no point dwelling. But what can I take away to go, all right, this is where we failed. This is what we're going to work on today at training on Tuesday. This is the scenarios we're going to set up. This is the skill constraint drills we're going to work the skill into. Then you've got,
So I had this coach, and he used to always say, if your meetings are long, and there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
When you're winning, your meetings are really, really short and sharp. You know,
Yeah.
you're in and out. And I find, especially after a loss, you're really not in a good mindset to to analyze anything well,
No.
because there's a lot of emotion. All right, so you want to calm down.
Yeah.
Process the information first before you actually start to feed yourself all the negative stuff that you shouldn't. Because in that moment, and it's common. Changing room stuff.
Yeah.
Guys, especially the more old school style of coaching where they just hammer you. All right,
I'm not a
bang,
fan of that.
bang, bang, bang. They got to hit you between the eyes, as they say.
Yeah.
Now, I think the modern person,
Yeah.
especially the young players, they do not react well to
No.
that sort of style, because you're almost attacking the person
Yeah.
and not the skill, or
Yeah.
not what they're supposed to deliver. So they feel really targeted.
Yeah.
So then they actually start to go. You start to lose them, and you lose the changing room, you lose the team, and then the next thing, the performances are just going left, right, and center. So that's why I think there's a fine line between how coaches are supposed to talk to players now. There are moments where you got to give them a bit of a clip.
Yeah.
But there is a certain way to go about it.
Constructive thing, it's like, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's this. But I suppose, as I said that out loud, I was thinking like, there probably is an attitude that sometimes does need to be addressed, to be like, but you could probably approach it and be like, I think there's more that you can get out of yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like you're committing to achieve this.
Yeah.
Is this what you want to be doing?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah, and I think at the lower levels, the challenge is you don't have the luxury of specialist coaches. You've got one coach, and he oversees everything.
Yeah.
And I think at the higher level, we've got the luxury of a bowling coach who can then step in and say, listen, the bowlers, let's go away, let's have a chat. And probably can have that one-on-one chat with each individual. Whereas when in a team environment where the head coach is just giving everyone a serve, you're not really, I suppose, looking at each scenario and saying, okay, what could we have done differently, and I think that's where it's harder at the bottom. It always gets easier as you go up the top. It becomes more man management, because everyone's skill level is expected to be somewhere. So I think at the lower levels, if I was talking to a coach and say, listen, how can you get the best out of your bowlers, or how can you analyze better? I'm not a big fan of just serve everyone, because I've definitely seen the kids now, and it's nothing against the way people grow up in this day and age, but I think when you grow up in an environment where everyone's sort of just telling you to it's going to be okay, just have fun.
Yeah.
Then you get someone who comes and absolutely serves you.
Yeah.
You're going to just be like, okay, I've got to get out of the situation.
Yeah.
So then you just, whereas man management is key in this day and age more than ever.
Yeah.
Because we just don't have the old school, cop it on the chin. It just doesn't work nowadays.
No.
You've got to win people over.
Yeah.
And when you win them over, they will do anything for you.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
It's something I've seen in different changing rooms, and guys just go into a shell when you hammer them in front of everyone.
Oh, that's one of the worst things. And I've had people reach out on social media when I put a couple of posts up, having a talk about it. Like, I don't believe that outburst of anger is constructive. And usually it's someone that is more emotional, and that's their outlet.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't make your outlet have a then negative impact on the players, and it can ruin them, Yeah.
But I still believe there is a level of, I suppose, there is a level of hardness that's required. I don't know, for lack of a
grit
better word.
is the word that I like, goes around. And
you can be a little bit harder on the players. And you know what? If you can't speak to them or give them a hard serve, you can probably show them. Maybe make them run on the track or something, just make them feel a little bit of, okay, let's be accountable. Let's just, we mucked around on the weekend. How about, we just run it through, just challenge the body a little bit, that way you can reach other parts without being directly like.
And I find sometimes the sprays where it's like you're generally spraying the whole group, but then you say specific things, but you don't actually direct it to the person who did it.
Yeah.
So you make everyone feel shit.
Yeah.
But like you could be quite direct with someone in a really calm tone.
Yeah.
And say exactly what you need to say.
Yeah.
In a way that's like, I'm on your side here, mate.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not sure what you were thinking there.
Yeah.
But that's.
Yeah. And I also think the spray, you can probably, for the more professional cricketer who's getting paid to play, it can be justified.
Yeah.
Because people can relax and get lazy. And
Yeah.
they just need to, be woken up a little bit. It's understandable.
Yeah.
But I think at the amateur level where guys are just turning up and you're trying to build confidence and get guys, ready, you can lose people like that. Because at the end of the day, you're not paying them to play cricket or whatever sport it is. They're there to participate. So I think as you go up, the serve becomes a little bit more, okay, you can get away with it if the guys are looking like they're literally just falling off. There's a couple of parameters that people can play within, and then once they start to play outside that, you're like, okay, guys, we're taking the mickey here. Okay, let's just get back on the on the horse. And it comes to understanding that balance between train hard, play easy. You know what I mean? Whereas if it's just go, it stops being fun. Ultimately you want to play cricket.
There's burnout for sure.
Yeah.
At the high level, that's one of the things I found interesting to talk about. And like that was something that when I was talking about like Mitch, he would be a really cool person to have a conversation with around like his journey, and say the ups and downs of like his career, And then I also heard on his podcast like he started talking about technique. He mentioned like, oh God, we could talk about this for hours. And I sat back there thinking like, I would happily have that conversation.
I think it would be nice to sort of speak to someone like Mitch because
I do want to know more about what you picked up from like his process.
Well, I mean, it's a different kind of Mitch now. This is a retired Mitch, and I think the one thing is obviously the level of competitiveness always comes out when you're put in that environment of obviously when we rocked up in, I think I'll speak for everyone, for that particular series we thought, let's just have a bit of fun, and that's what we all thought was going to happen, but once we stepped out on the field and guys are coming at you, geez, we realized pretty quick that, you know what? You're going to get embarrassed because there's 35, 40,000 people screaming out there. And then the game's being televised around the world. So coming from my observations of people like Mitch, Liam and all these other guys, and I think everyone's levels just started to rise again, and you could just tell that, okay, we probably came thinking it's just going to be a little bit of fun, and then now we got to actually turn up. So, and I think Mitch has got he's got that. I mean, he was a genuine fast bowler. So I think you'll always have that sort of level of, I don't know whether you call it aggressiveness or intent, but I mean, it came out when it needed to come out, and I think you could crank it up a bit more if his body allowed him to. But I think he also, I mean, he talked a little bit about how painful it was for him because he hadn't done much bowling wise leading into that tournament, and he was like, I think if I was to do this again, I'd probably put a little bit more time into the preparation, and I think that was the general consensus with a few of the guys that hadn't bowled a lot because even Brett Lee, I think I heard he hadn't done a whole heap of bowling leading into that, and guys were surprised because then you had Tino Best, Fidel Edwards charging in, charging in, and we're like, okay, right. And I think a few of the legends were like, okay, well, is this what we signed up for? Because those guys were now coming hard. So going back to Mitch, I think I would have not liked to face him at his best. Let's just put it that way. And lucky I didn't. And I think from what I saw of the people that faced him, I remember the English.
Retired.
It was not not a very pleasant time. I think, yeah, being a left-hander and having the ability to bring the ball back in, so that bouncer that just
Yeah.
follows you. You know, I can imagine coming at 150. I think you got nowhere else to go.
Yep.
So you end up being cramped up for room, and if you're not getting it here, you're probably wearing it somewhere.
I just remember from that series Trot, and I think prior as well, the way that they almost tried to get out of the way and throw it out there. And it was good to watch.
Yeah, no, it was good to watch. And for once, ball was dominating bat, which is rare at the moment.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing about the evolution of bat. Like we talked about, batting and coming down first ball and like going bang.
Yeah.
Bowling, I don't feel has been as innovative. And batting as well has gone from being like, you think conventional straight bat, etc. Now it's like play 360, a reverse sweep 10 years ago. I think Mark Waugh tried it and, got roasted for it on 100 and something. I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
But now it's like another shot. But bowlers, I don't know. I have an idea where I like the idea of an adaptable technique where like there's certain things you can change in how you load up, which is going to change how you release it.
Yeah.
So there's change ups you can bowl within that.
Yeah.
And you can also double bluff with it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think there's something there.
I remember when Alan Donald came to Zimbabwe and worked with us for a little bit, and he was like, his theory was, we talked a little bit about T20 bowling, and I remember him saying, guys, you should try and bowl differently every ball. Because if you bowl the same ball twice, I'm telling you now, the batsman, like you bowl someone like Brendan McCullum, right, in his prime, you can imagine. You bowl the same, like one ball there, and if you think about putting it back there, you go. Yep. So he was like, why don't you guys bowl from over the wicket, one ball, try coming around the wicket the next ball.
Yep.
Try ball a bouncer coming around the wicket.
Yep.
Yeah, just try a Yorker from like ultimately keep the batter thinking. Because batters don't train like that.
Yeah.
All right. So to be able to train like that, I think they call it random practice.
Yeah.
Right. And generally with random practice, you don't get good short-term results. It's very like long-term based, and that's why you get one AB de Villiers, one Glenn Maxwell, and one Sky.
Yeah, geez, he's been interesting lately.
Yeah, because it's a process that takes years.
Yeah.
Because technically, it's going to take you a while to master every shot.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about not just mastering, you're talking about execution.
And belief.
Yeah. Wow. So anyone who does a lot of random training doesn't get good short-term results, and I think the studies show that as well. So ultimately, as a bowler, if you start throwing the ball all over the place, then you scramble the batsman's mind. And when the batsman's mind is scrambled, I'm telling you now, decision-making becomes very hard.
Yeah.
So this is another tip. Now, it's completely different from bowling a bit of rubbish and then a bit of, good balls.
Yeah.
It's literally trying to be a Sky or an AB de Villiers from a bowling perspective. You can nail a Yorker. You can nail a good ball, a good length top of off. You can nail a bouncer. You can nail the slow ball. So if you can nail every ball, like execute as well as you can, then you're pretty much doing what the batters are doing to the bowlers.
Yep.
So it comes back now to training.
Yeah.
You got to train accordingly.
Well, it links back into the run-up thing. Like, a simple thing you can do is change your run-up, change your alignment of the crease, and hence change the angle.
Yeah.
And if you can change how you might change how you bowl the ball. One might be a in-swinger, one might be a wobble, one might be something else. Then you've got...
And the key to that, and I remember doing it myself when I was young, is I'd swing the ball one ball, and I couldn't remember how I held it. Right? So that was a typical error that I was angry at myself, because then I was like, oh, how did I hold it? So now I always say to people, if you're training, if you're going to make changes, understand what you're about to try first, so that if it comes off, you can go and repeat it over and over and over, and then you tick it off. Right?
And then journal it down so you remember it.
Exactly.
So if you forget it, you know where it is to come back to.
Exactly. Because a lot of the times, I'm telling you now, I've asked players if I'm coaching someone, and I say, listen, what did you do for that particular ball? And they're like, oh, I don't know. So I'm like, wow, Okay, so that was fluke because you can't repeat it.
Right. Someone bowls an in-swinging Yorker, cleans at the guy and goes like, goes crazy, I got a wicket. But it's like, did you mean to do that?
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, I don't know, mate. Like,
you can't do it again. Like, it'll be a fluke.
Yep.
So ultimately, that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Learning is literally the ability to say, okay, this is what I do, or this is what I've done. It worked, and I'm going to repeat it until it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
All right. And I held the ball like this. I ran in from this point. I did this. Make associations so that you've got reference points for that particular ball. You've mastered it. Okay, let's go on to the bouncer. Let's go on to this one. Let's go on to this one. So they call that block training, right? So, okay, we block. We're going to try and just bowl Yorkers. Okay, you've mastered the Yorker. Let's go wide Yorker. You mastered that. Now let's mix it up. Let's go one wide, one here. One wide, one here. Now, if you start to nail that, all of a sudden,
Yep.
now you're adding what they call practice variability, right? Now you're also scrambling the brain a little bit and allowing that recall to come in at the right time. So that is the part that we want to get to as fast bowlers, because a lot of the training at the moment is just you rock up. It's especially I'm talking about the lower level stuff.
Yeah.
You rock up. It's bat v ball. Maybe you warm up, maybe you don't. Maybe your first warm up is at the batter, and then you get him out, and then you're like, yeah. And then you get hit out of the park, whatever. It's just like let's just see where it goes. It's a bit of fun, but then come the crunch moment, you don't know what to bowl. You don't have anything to bring back because you haven't practiced it before. You've got no plan, and then you lose the match for the team, and then everyone's coming around saying, "Oh man, it's not your fault." So. Ultimately, I was having this chat with one of my mates yesterday, and they play golf, and I was like, he was like, "Oh, do you reckon my son needs coaching?" And I was like, you know what? If it's at the foundational level, absolutely, because playing is going to be more fun for them when they know exactly what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. Because when you get on the golf course, if you're hooking it, slicing it, and then occasionally hit the straight one, tell you what, it's a nightmare.
That sounds like me.
It's a nightmare. But if you understand your swing, all right, then you're like, oh, yeah, you know what? Whenever I hit it straight, I've just got to slow down my swing, da-da-da-da-da. At least you can enjoy playing around with your mates. You know what I mean? You're not always chasing, going into the bush.
It's genuinely why I don't play much golf. Genuinely why I don't play much golf.
So I think you need the foundation. You need to be able to say, okay, I need to enjoy my cricket. It's not about playing for Australia. It's not about playing international cricket. It's not about playing Big Bash. It's about enjoyment. Yeah. You enjoy things when you obviously do them well.
Yeah. And that's a great point too, that if you don't have something in place to, get better, are you really going to enjoy being the exact same season after season after season? And I think that was one of the big things that you see with people that, I don't know, probably the vast majority of amateur players, they pretty much only float between 1 to 2 levels, maybe 3.
Yeah.
And they never really have seasons that say get better and better and better and better and better, or their execution or their skills get better and better and better and better. So you're recycling the same season.
Yeah, and I remember part of the series of articles that I was going to release on. Well, I think I've done 2 that are on the Advanced to Play platform, in the 4 stages of what's the title? The 4 phases of training.
Okay.
All right. So I was like, I think one of the articles I wrote, I was like, you don't have to go through all of them, but you need to understand where you are.
Yeah.
Because then if you don't want to improve, there's no point, focusing on that. But you need to understand where you are so that the coach, your parents, your friends, everyone understands where you are so they don't push you if you don't want to be pushed, if that makes sense. So if you say, I want to play first class for Victoria, and you're playing thirds in your local team, then you know what? the way you approach training is really all about improvement.
Seriously.
Every single session is got to be about improvement, right?
Mm.
But if you say, well, listen, I just want to turn up on Saturday, play a little bit with my mates, go out to the pub afterwards and have a beer. I don't really care if we win or lose.
Yep.
Well, you know what? That's just participation.
Yeah.
So for you now, it's about whatever makes it enjoyable. You know? If it's having a couple of pints before
Do you want to
the
hit
game,
bombs? Yep, we'll hit some bombs.
you know? But what if you get to that first class level and you say, I want to play for Australia now? So now you're in that last phase, which I think it's the training to win. So there's the training to train, training to improve, training to compete, training to win. Now that's where the 1%ers are the one, you know, like every single thing matters. Your nutrition, your hydration, your recovery. You know, you start to look at your technique a little bit more. You invest money in getting the experts. You know, you've got a incremental little 1%ers. But if you're at the, you know, just training to train, which is, well, you know, let's have a net.
Yeah.
I've got to turn up today for training just because I have to. Well, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just enjoy it. Make whatever makes you happy.
It's a good differentiation.
The coach needs to understand that's where you are.
Yeah.
You need to tell your dad or your mom this is where I am, so that they don't actually feel like they're wasting money sending you to Stubbzy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's and there's a couple of parents that are like that.
Well, I mean, it is a miscommunication or a misunderstanding, or once in a while you get a what do you call it? The parents trying to live vicariously through, you know, like, and there needs to be an understanding, and you probably have to have that conversation once in a while with parents to say, listen, and I think coaches, you do yourself a disservice if you're not genuine with the parents, because it's your name on the table at the end of the day, or on the line. You've got to be able to say, listen, man, he is not where you think he is.
Yeah.
Just be direct, because I think they'll respect you for it, rather than beating about the bush, you know, because at the end of the day, if the kid's not improving, he doesn't really need to get more coaching, because he doesn't want to improve. You know, people improve because they want to improve. You know, so if he's like just turning up, it's just all fun and games. Well, unless it's a fun exercise, like, let's get him out of the house. Well, okay, stick with it. But if you're genuinely looking for results and someone is not interested, well, I think it's a good conversation to have and say, listen, Tim is not interested, all right? And you're forcing him to come here. And at the end of the day, you're going to leave me and say, we never got anything out of that guy. You know, it never worked out. Whereas he wasn't invested, and you end up feeling like you're wasting time as well. He feels like, well, you know, I've wasted money. So cognitive dissonance. And at the end of the day, expectations versus outcomes.
No, that's a huge point, I think, because it is your, you know, your name, your business, your brand, your reputation, that it's not my coaching's fault in this scenario.
Yeah.
He just didn't want to do it.
Yeah. You've got to be able, whether it's just an understanding of how long it's going to take to get them to where they want to get to, if they're interested, or just okay, give me the honest truth. Do you think this kid is going to make it? And I get that a lot. And my answer to that is, listen, you never say never. All right. But it's going to take a lot of work. All right. So if I ever get someone that says to me, listen, man, have a look at him, have a look at his technique, what do you think? I'm like, well, yeah, he's a gun. Easy conversation. Probably needs to improve his, you know, mental strategy, tactics. But I think he's got what it takes technically. Or, listen, man, he's not where he's probably a lot of the good players at his age are. So he needs to put in a lot of work, and that's an expense. I don't know whether you're prepared to do it, but if you are, it can happen. Probably needs 2 or 3 sessions a week. And extra away from here that he does by himself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
Yeah. And that's when you start thinking about private coaching, like it does start to bank up.
it is very expensive.
Yep.
And I think there is, I suppose, that element of the cognitive dissonance is pretty high, I suppose, because a lot of people don't know what to get from coaches. They don't know what to actually sort of have, how to have the conversation with the coach and actually come up with the plan and say, okay, this is where we want to get to. A lot of people go to coaches to just get some sort of feedback on where the kid is or whether he's got potential or not, which it's not the coach's job really to tell you whether the kid's good enough. If the kid's got to want it, that's where the conversation should start. Do you want to play for Australia? Do you want to, and I wouldn't tell anyone to want to play for Australia first, because I think ultimately, deep down you want to. Who doesn't?
Yeah, it's super common.
But first of all, you want to be good. You just want to be good at what you do. And then you surprise yourself by, I got picked in the Vicks. I got picked in the state team. But it starts from, are you good at your skill?
Yeah.
Can you execute? So I think, the conversation should never be at the age of 13. Geez, I want to play for Australia. I'm just thinking to myself, man, it's a lot of disappointment that's waiting to happen. It's a lot of stress and pressure you're putting on yourself because, you want to aim for something, but you could aim to be the best batter in your team.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I put in my inquiry form. I was like, where are you now? Where do you want to get to?
Yeah.
And tell me how many levels are between that.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, now I can send you back an email and be like, right, this is where you're at.
Yeah.
This is where we can set our goal setting and be like, let's try and get to there.
Yeah.
Well, at this level, what are they making runs-wise?
Yeah.
What are they taking wickets-wise?
Yeah.
And where do you sit?
Yeah.
Like, this is 7 steps away.
Yeah.
Like, we got to get you there first. And then
Yeah.
what are you missing that's like preventing you from getting there? And I think that's a much better place to start.
Yeah. And I reckon from a batting perspective, almost every country I've been to, and including Australia, it's a very simple conversation. Generally, if you score 300s at your level, all right, and especially if you're young, you're going to move to the next level pretty quickly. Next year, you'll be playing a different level. So if you make 300s at subbies and you go to Premier, you make 300s in the twos, you're going to play ones. If you make 300 in the ones, all right, potentially, I reckon you might be pushed to do it twice, maybe back to back. But I'll probably say you'll get some sort of invitation, to play in some or train in some academy. So if you make 300s at that level, then you're looking at second 11, you're looking at state. And then at state, then you're probably asked to maybe put 2 or 3 seasons together for consistency. But if you're making 300s, I'll almost say if you make 300s in your first season of first class cricket, you're going to get a call up to the Australia A side. And then
it's all just a game of 300s or three 5s.
Yeah, but it's consistency, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you set those kinds of goals, like there's nothing wrong. And I wrote something on goal setting, right? Of course, you gotta have a long-term vision. If you're really, really, really like passionate about it, your life depends on it. You wake up, you dream, sleep, eat, cricket, and you say, okay, bang.
Like someone like Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy's very passionate. So he wanted to make it, and yes, I think you put the goal there, but it shouldn't be. You shouldn't focus on it every day.
You can't be outcome focused.
You've got to literally be here, where you are. You need to dominate where you are to move to the next level. But then you keep in mind the long-term vision of, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I want to get to the top of the mountain. Yeah. But if you focus there, you're going to lose out here.
It's like you define the destination, but you're enjoying the journey, or like the journey's where it happens.
You start to move towards the destination, and to be honest, it's something that I look back and say, wow, the night that after I made my 100 against Sri Lanka, which was probably the highlight at that time, I was just sitting in my room thinking, so that's all that feels like. It's not that big a deal. Like I didn't feel like I had had this halo moment. I was sleeping in my room thinking, "Oh Jesus, I can score hundreds."
Yeah,
I didn't. I just was lying to myself. But I felt like I was like, "Oh man, I worked so hard," and that's just what it feels like. It's just like you celebrate, take the helmet off. I'm like, I'd probably rather make a 60 and win than to make 100, lose, and then you're like celebrating, you're like, oh, 100. I was like, I don't know, it's just a milestone. And then one of my mates was saying he bumped into Mike Hussey once, and Mike Hussey told him, he asked him about, oh, mate, your average international cricket, da 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 da. And apparently Mike Hussey said to this guy, listen, when I finished up, I realized that no one really cares about that. He's like,
no.
People remember how you make them feel, but you're the one that's really caught up in the numbers because you're thinking, oh yeah, 47.66. But I mean, if you think about it, does the world really stop?
Yeah.
No.
It's really good. I love this conversation because I love the journey destination conversation.
Yeah.
The journey of making the 100 is better and more enjoyable than when you get to the 100, you do this, that, but then like you've done it, now it's into the next moment.
Yeah.
So it's like the journey of all these moments linked up, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Getting caught up in say, the outcomes, the destination, that sort of stuff, which guys do.
Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, when I finished up, I was like, I wish I wanted to make 2000s. Because for me, I was just like, I want to make an international 100 to show that I can actually make an international 100. And once I hit that 100, I was like, well, I've done it, and
what's next?
Yeah, what's next? I was like, I wanted another challenge.
Great. I remember someone talking about Brian Lara and like he was never satisfied. 200 not satisfied. 300 not satisfied. 400 not satisfied. Did he make a 500 in a first class game?
He did, in England.
And I thought that was fascinating about someone that could walk off after making 250 or something and be like, nah, I'm not happy.
I was always envious of people like that because my battles were really short. So if I went out to bat, I wanted to win the moment. So I'd be saying, okay, Dale Steyn is running at me. I want to take him for 19 and they're over.
Yeah.
And if I won that, I'd be like, oh, well, okay, that's it. Let me just go and have some fun now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I actually, and I always tell young batters, I'm like, listen, you want to be able to be boring at some phase. Because if you're boring, you're going to make runs.
Yeah.
But if you're like me, right, and you got to learn from my mistakes, and if you just want to win a little moment or win a little battle here and there, you say, oh, yeah, I smashed him out of the park. I'll tell you what, you've got to live by the sword and die by. You got to be able to say, well, you know what, I was having a little bit of fun. So cricket was fun for me when I was attacking, going after them. But then that's a high risk and very low rewards at the best of times sort of game plan because you fail a whole lot more than you succeed. And cricket is already a game where you fail more than you succeed. So to be consistently good, like a Steve Smith, a Marnus, Kohli, you've got to be a little bit boring. And that means taking your medicine, playing the percentages, waiting for the ball in your zone.
And staying hungry while doing that.
Exactly. So you've got to enjoy batting more than you enjoy playing all these other extravagant shots. Since you end up saying to yourself, well, this is not going to help me score 100. So you bring yourself back. Whereas my mindset is, well, I can't let this guy just ball out so often. I've got to go after it because that's enjoyable to me. And if I win that, I'm like, I've put him off. You know what I mean? So I've taken care of it. So for those that want and from a bowler listening or watching, that's why people say be boring. In the longer format, just let the batter make the decision. You just bowl that nice top of all. Let's see if we can leave 6 because you can't. It's hard to, especially with the modern player. play so much
Good point.
T20s.
Yeah.
There's no ways people are patient enough to be able to say, okay, I'm just going to.
And it was interesting because Cam Green, I'm pretty sure it's Cam Green, the commentator talking about it was mentioning that it was difficult to get back into red ball cricket and to get used to different contact points.
Yeah.
Because like your contact points are real different when you're playing white ball, short format cricket. And that's quite fascinating, I think.
Yeah.
Use that to your advantage as a bowler.
Absolutely. So you find batters hit themselves out of form by, especially when they go from red ball to white ball, because the moment you start, or you come from white ball to red ball, so the moment you start swinging hard, you lose shape. Once you lose shape, all of a sudden, you're mishitting a lot, and then you just start to feel like you're not in the best nick.
Yeah.
And you know what? Cricket it's a mindset sort of game. The moment you just don't feel right, it just ends up showing on the scorecard, and Steve Smith talks about, this is the best I've felt in a long time.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's showing on the scorecard too. So ultimately, when I teach T20 now, I always say, if you really want to be consistent, start with cricket shots, and that's just timing the ball, keep your shape, and then you can expand. All right. But if you first go in and just try and swing as hard as I'm telling you now, you'll be hating cricket, because you might come off one game and then the rest of the season you'll be wondering what happened. I used to hit the ball so well.
Yeah, one hit wonder.
So I know we're going to go in between bowling and batting, but it's the mindset. It's understanding that.
And that's the real applicable thing, I think, is like the lessons you can take out of both.
Yeah.
Is where you can really get the value out of that conversation.
Yeah. I think it pays for bowlers to invest in their batting, because the more you start to understand and start to think like a batter, you really can start to preempt some things and get that upper hand that a lot of bowlers don't have, because batters generally, what do batters do? They practice every day for the ball coming down that way, and they get surprised generally when someone else comes around the wicket, because we just don't do it regularly.
Yeah, it's true.
So, but ideally nowadays with the sidearm and everything else, there is that element of batters. The game is, it's probably more, it leans, gives an advantage more to batters than it does to bowlers. So bowlers need to kind of sneak their way through the batting system, I guess, and start to learn a little bit more about the batters, so they can actually, start to, preempt some of those things that the batters seem to enjoy, I suppose.
And then you're better prepared.
Yeah, you're better prepared. Yeah. You're better prepared.
I reckon we've done well there, mate. 6:30. Mate, every time we have a chat, the conversation can carry on.
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
It is because maybe we should do a weekly podcast or
Sol and Stubbzy,
weekly vlog or whatever.
I think that'd be cool though, especially while I'm down here.
Batting or bowling, because ultimately I love talking about cricket, because once again, when you spend so much time trying to get better, you learn. And then that information needs to be shared, because someone's going through that journey
for sure
right now, and they're wondering, I was thinking about that.
And these conversations, I found it's cool to, like, the point that I wanted to do was like let people be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because we'd have this chat. We probably had it 4 or 5 times already, digging into a lot more than just this. It's like now there's a mic, there's, you can see us as well to see.
Yeah.
But no, good we look. Hopefully you can't see my sunburn too much. But like that's the really cool thing. And I like the idea of keeping it ongoing. Like, how much can you really dig into in, an hour and a half?
A fun one for me would be maybe we do something live and actually like get questions on air and answer them there, because that would be cool, wouldn't it? Because there's sometimes you kind of like, if you send in a question, then
I think it definitely that'd be definitely something you could do share the links that anyone can like sign in and that sort of stuff. And Yeah, but that's where you get the questions like, what's the best drill for this? What's the best drill for that? How do I fix this? And it's like, with those people, they haven't got the underlying foundation of knowledge to ask a better question.
Yeah.
So it's not their fault.
Yeah.
They just don't know enough to go, there's better questions that you can ask.
Yeah. And I'll probably say it's that whole Google generation where you think you can get one answer for one question, for a question, every question. You just go on Google and say, listen, how do I bowl fast?
That's why I clickbait shit. It's like everyone goes to Google and types in how to fix lateral flexion, how to bowl fast.
Yeah,
so
I'll tell you what, it's you almost now need to kind of start the conversation by answering that question in a way
that's the clickbait, right? Because when you scroll through Instagram, you see that one little, like the first sentence.
Yeah.
So I clickbait that.
Yeah.
And then I explain the clickbait.
Yeah. And
then we get into it. Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a long answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can answer it, but how much time have you got? Because it's got to start somewhere.
Right. How do you bowl fast?
Yeah.
Sign up for my 10-week course and fuck. We'll probably be able to get through like a bit of it. Fuck, there's been people who've done research for decades that have like tried to answer that question.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm putting up a course, T20, how to make 100. I like that because I'm like, it's massive. Like I thought it was just going to be something simple, but it's something that when I was reading it, I was like, wow, this is a lot of information. So I don't know. It needs modules because, in all honesty, you've got to answer remember I was talking about the run scoring equation?
Yeah.
Like, it's easy when you put it like that. Now, when you break down each component, right, and then you're like, oh, okay, let's just look at the defensive game. Okay.
Yeah.
What about, let's start with the technique. Can you defend well? Like, is your technique good enough to defend? How do you defend away swing? How do you defend in swing?
Yeah.
So what about leaving? What's the best way to leave the ball? Like what positions are you in? Let's go ball tracking.
We haven't even talked about like where you're for 100 and T20, where your main scoring options are going to be. Can we get there?
And then it is a very, very exciting thing for me when I'm talking about it. But ultimately, I always say to myself, geez, people who expect a very short answer to how do I become a better cricketer or how do I, are probably not in the right field.
Be a good question.
I mean, it's for anything, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, if I put a course together, like how do you take a 5 for, or like what skills do you need to kind of do that?
Yeah.
If you're just a bowler who's bowling top of off,
I
don't know. Like you might need a really, really shit deck to get 5, right? Because it's going to have to dart a bit that way, stay low, roll for you to be able to get through 5 batsmen.
Well, you got to ask the guy first. Like, okay, what's your plan? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, can you bowl in swing?
Pitch it up.
Can you roll away swing? What's the batter? What's the conditions? What have you got to work with? I mean, it's
not swinging. What are you going to do?
It's a whole. It's a lot of stuff, and I love the whole strategy versus tactics sort of chat. But I think for the guys that love talking cricket, hearing cricket, I think like growing up, this is the kind of information that I would have wanted to have. And I feel like if we ever did something where people can actually tune in, or like the recorded stuff is brilliant. But if they could do something live as well, it would be phenomenal.
We can sort something out. I'm sure we can.
Sort it out. But I love it because
we've like trialed this. I mean, the fuck, that camera fell over only once.
So it'll be interesting. But when you like cricket, it's a passion, right?
Yeah.
So you just watching cricket, I'm learning something. Going to training, I'm learning something. Listening to you, I'm learning something. At the end of the day, I'm like, well, what do I do with all this information? I got to share it, right? So,
well, that's what I asked as well, which is why the membership is going to be like, it's just a simple. I've got no other way to share the information except for that, because I can only put so much in an Instagram post. I could put it in the YouTube videos. But it'd take so much time if I did that and I wasn't getting paid. I'd be like, well, now I'm not making any money. And now I can't do it anymore. And
in a way, that's kind of where I was going with the platform, in that if like people like me, I can't go all out and just do cricket. I've got to zone in and zone out. So for the times that I'm engaged,
Mm.
I'm gonna make something, and then I'm gonna put it somewhere
Yeah.
where people can access it.
No, for
And then
sure.
when I'm not there, people can still access
It's still
it.
there.
Yeah.
No, for
So
sure.
that's more like me. But if you were like, I suppose someone like yourself or Jimmy, you know, you love doing this regular every day. It's your sort of lifestyle and work, and it's everything.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, a subscription is absolutely weird because you engage with them every day. Whereas I've got weeks where I'm just like, I'm not around.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
people are looking for me, and I'm like, sorry, I ended up getting caught up in something else, you know. So ultimately, I feel like, yeah, if I mean, not for this podcast, but from outside, if there was something that needed to be like short, like that's what the platform is for, something short term, something that you're like, okay, you know, let's just throw this out there, let's test it out, let's see if it's, you know, what we can get. But ultimately, it's a resource platform, and that's what I want to get to. Like YouTube, how many people are on YouTube? How many videos are on YouTube? You get there, you say, okay, how do I do this? And then you get 20,000.
Yeah, fuck
then
no.
by going through that, you spend an hour figuring out stuff. You've got to listen to it, and then you're like, oh, that wasn't that good. Let's try another one. Then you're putting information, and then you're confusing yourself, and then you're like, oh, do I take one out of that? And then, so by aggregating that information and going to one place where you can access specific information to what you're looking for, I think it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the dream, but
I agree. And then you can also phase it like step by step and go, I'm going to give you this piece of context, which will feed into this, which will feed into this.
Yeah.
And when you're picking out different things, it's like they don't link together all that well. But yeah.
So yeah, we'll get there.
Exciting times.
We'll get there. I love sharing information, man. It's just that, yeah, sometimes you know, accessibility is pretty hard because, once again, there's so many people that need to be helped.
Yeah, that's
and there's
true.
only so much time in the day, and then you've also got a life. You've got a missus. You've got, you know, like, you're not always going to be accessible. So that's why the online system works now, because you can be your information can be accessed from anywhere in the world, which we didn't have growing up. You know, like that was just that would have been absolutely phenomenal. But anyways, it's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure, mate.
And what goes up must come down. What starts must end.
That was a good start, I think. Now I can stop this, and until next time.